Everybody ready? Welcome everybody. My name is John Vile and I am the Acting Director of the Jackson County Emergency Operations Center responding to these fires that have impacted our community. I have a few updates that I wanted to provide, and then I'm going to turn time over to Toby Rice. Toby is the division supervisor for FEMA in this area, and he can provide some updates from FEMA's perspective as well. And I'd ask that we save questions to the end like we've done in previous press conferences. First thing I wanted to cover is debris removal. As you drive through this area, a large area has been impacted and there's a great deal of debris, and there's been a lot of discussions about how is this going to be cleaned up and how is this going to be dealt with. The main message that I want to portray on behalf of Jackson County, the City of Talent, and the City of Phoenix is that we're requesting people do not attempt to clean up this debris by yourself at this time. There are several reasons for that. That the debris may contain hazardous materials such as asbestos, heavy metals, and other toxic items. There's hazardous trees on many of these sites and other structural hazards on the property. In addition, cleaning up this material requires compliance with complex federal and state hazardous waste laws, and the contractors have to have special licenses and certifications. And in many cases, homeowner insurance policies won't cover the full cost. So we're asking people to hold off. We're not asking people to do nothing, because we are working with the state and we do have a nice, comprehensive, systematic process in place to hopefully get this cleaned up on everybody's behalf. What the state and the coordinating with the county is trying to do is provide a systematic basis where we can come in with single contractors and clean the whole site up, all the damaged area, for everybody that gives us permission to do so. This is going to avoid the problem of where you have one site cleaned up and the neighboring site's not, and you have blight, you have hazards. So we're trying to do this through a single coordinated process. That process is expected to start in mid-October with the first step, and step one of that is cleaning up the household hazardous waste. The Oregon Department of Environmental Quality has contracted with US EPA, their strike teams, to come in the middle of October and start this process. I will note that as part of this process, we will require right of entry permits from everybody's personal property. So with the cities and the county, we're going to be reaching out, trying to get everybody to sign those right of entry permits, giving us permission to enter the property and to conduct this cleanup. Following the household hazardous waste, we are working with the state to embark then on the big cleanup, which will remove all the ash and the burned debris and the other materials. So when we're done, we'll be left with the site ready to rebuild. The next item I wanted to touch on is the Multi-Agency Resource Center, frequently called the MARC. The MARC is located here at the Old Central High School in Medford. It has seen well over 1,000 clients so far and is operating well. Right now, the MARC has primarily FEMA representatives located here, but we are expecting some other partners to come in, such as Goodwill, Access, St. Vincent de Paul's, and some other service providers on a rotating basis to provide assistance to people needing help. Due to the lack of activity after hours, we are reducing the hours for the MARC from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. That will start tomorrow, but it will be operating 7 days a week. This facility does have agents from FEMA that can assist you through the process of getting your claim started and the claim filed. And then starting tomorrow, we're having additional FEMA representatives, often called the individual assistance representatives, and these people are specialized in helping people with the complex cases where proving ownership or something like that is difficult. So those people will be here starting tomorrow, and Toby can talk more about that. In addition to the MARC, we have FEMA representatives located at the Phoenix Civic Center in the city of Phoenix and at the Talent Elementary School on the hours of 8 to 6 p.m. All areas have Spanish-speaking representatives available or interpreters available, so those that speak Spanish as their native language should not be afraid to attend, as assistance will be given. We'd encourage anyone who has suffered a loss in this, and this is something that we have stated many times, go to www.disasterassistance.gov and register your loss and get the process started. That's how the process started, is by registering at that location. Next topic I wanted to touch on is the damage assessment. The damage assessment is continuing to be perfected, and I do have some new numbers to report. Currently, we are reporting 3,606 structures have been reviewed, and of that number, 2,490 residential structures were destroyed, and this is in the Alameda fire. 120 residential structures were damaged. For commercial, 164 commercial properties were destroyed, and 24 commercial properties were damaged. In addition, at the South Obanchain fire, 55 structures were destroyed, of which 33 of those were residential properties. This damage assessment did tag the buildings within the burn area with a green, yellow, or red tag indicating their safety to use the facility. I want to emphasize that that notice was only indicating the structural soundness of the facility, and does not indicate if there's running water, sewer, electricity, or if there are other hazards present. Lastly, on damage assessment, I would just bring your attention to the Jackson County website, www.jacksoncounty.org damage dashboard. This is a site that we talked about last week that went live over the weekend, and what this is an interactive mapping tool that provides property owners and anyone interested where they can zoom into the fire area, zoom into individual properties. There are photos of the site showing what the damage was and indicating if it was unaffected, minor, major, or destroyed. This has proven to be a very effective tool that's assisting property owners, insurance companies, and the FEMA representatives that are here helping us with the damage assessment. A piece of work that we put together here locally. The last thing I would note is the evacuation center out at the expo is continuing to be operational. That facility is providing shelter, food, and showers. We are seeing reduced numbers at that facility currently. Last night we had 48 people inside and 93 people outside on the facility. The donation drop-off at that area has been closed, and Red Cross does continue to operate the facility. We understand that Red Cross is showing great progress in locating non-congregate housing for many of the clients that are out there, and the congregate housing where people are housed inside together is continuing to see lower numbers, and we're expected to see that probably cease operations here soon, but other parts of the facility will continue to operate. And last thing I would just report is between the American Red Cross and the Salvation Army, we are serving over 1,200 meals per day to impacted citizens that were damaged or were harmed by this fire. And with that, I'm going to turn time over to Toby Rice with FEMA to provide an update from FEMA.
All right, thank you, John. My name is Toby Rice. As he said, I'm with FEMA, the division supervisor here. FEMA is here in support of the state and at the request of the governor. Just want to commend the staff here and all the great work they're doing. It is really the nation's desire to help to be here, and a lot of folks are working here and a lot of volunteers as well. We've had people from over 47 states here to support the residents of Jackson County. I understand you might be watching or listening from another county, so I want to be clear, number one, that contact your insurance company right away. If you have serious needs and expenses related to the disaster that are not covered by your insurance, there is a FEMA program that can help. As John said, please call 1-800-621-3362, or you can visit the website disasterassistance.gov. And FEMA also has an app for your smartphone, which is extremely useful and can also point you toward where shelters are, and you can get registered that way. I thought I'd give a couple numbers here just so you could understand what's happening across the state. So far, 6,200 people, more than 6,200 people have actually registered with FEMA and have received more than 13 million. Here in Jackson County, more than 2,700 people have registered and received more than 10 million. One thing John asked me to speak about was for those who might be receiving a letter or communication from FEMA that seems to suggest they were denied assistance. There might be various reasons for that. One, simply in perhaps registering online. You didn't get a social security number correct, or there's an error in an address. or even if you have insurance, because the FEMA program is meant to help in with expenses that are not covered by your insurance, the first communication you get from FEMA might be talking about the need for more information about that insurance coverage. So if you're one of those who has gotten a communication from FEMA that doesn't immediately provide you assistance, or even if you have a positive letter, there may be other assistance that you can receive. So I encourage you again to call 1-800-621-FEMA, or come here or to some of the other sites that John mentioned. There are sites here in Jackson and other counties where you can speak to FEMA directly. So they will, number one, help you register. Number two, look into your case file to answer questions you may have. And if you have made a small error in your application, they can correct that on the spot to move your application forward. You also, if you receive a determination that you don't agree with, please appeal. There is a process. You have 60 days to do so. Again, you can call the number or visit one of the FEMA people here locally. We are going to expand our capabilities here and be able to talk more about insurance, how to rebuild safer and stronger, and also to talk about disaster loans that may be available to you through the Small Business Administration. So if you have any questions, happy to take those after. Thanks.
So, any questions for Toby or myself? Go ahead.
There's been a number floated around that's going to be $70,000 per property. Is the property owner still responsible for that? Is that number accurate?
Where that number comes from is from previous events, previous large fires, especially down in the Sonoma County, California, and some of the other ones we've seen recently. And the numbers have a wide range. The number that we have been recommended to use by the Oregon Office of Emergency Management and by FEMA is $70,000, but there have been cases where that cost can go over $100,000 per site. What we're trying to do right now, what's approved is a 75-25 split, to where those assisting with financial assistance will pay 75% of the cost, and locals are responsible for 25%. The state is petitioning FEMA now to reduce that number and hopefully get it down. And when I talked before about this comprehensive, systematic approach that the county's working with the state to come down and clean these sites up comprehensively, if that is in place and we get the cost reduced, that number will be much lower to the property owners, or maybe even down to zero. That has not been approved yet, and that is not something that we can make any promises of, but what we can say, we are in the process, the state is in the process of petitioning and requesting FEMA to get a zero match, but that has not been approved yet.
And if someone says, no, I won't sign that, are you going to honor that?
So bottom line is, we have to have right of entry permits to enter private property. We just can't go on and do this. If somebody refuses to give us a right of entry permit, we will not go onto their property. Now, there might be city or county codes regarding nuisance ordinances and hazards that can be exercised, but at this time, our answer is we won't be entering the property.
You mentioned you want to bring in single contractors. Have you already started reaching out to those contractors, or what does that process look like?
So that's a process we have not yet started yet, but we will be, and we'll be soliciting contractors that have the capability to do this kind of work, and the experience to do this kind of work, and that process is yet to be started.
What about people that want to maybe sift through stuff, see if anything was recovered? You don't want them to clean up, but what's the process for them look like of trying to recover something? Will these contractors just throw stuff out, or what's that look like to them?
So many people have already entered their property and started this sifting process. There are some nonprofit organizations in the valley that can assist with that. Samaritan's Purse is one. There's other faith-based groups. Habitat for Humanity, I've heard is assisting with this. The American Red Cross also can provide kits and has been providing kits to assist people with that. So if people want to go onto site and sift through to find a keepsake or a memento of some kind that has not been destroyed, they are free to do that. What we would recommend is that they use a lot of caution, that they wear an N95 or better mask to protect themselves from the potential dust and ash in the area. Watch out for hazards. There's nails and sharp items, and there actually could be hot spots of fire, so use great care. And if somebody doesn't have the ability to do this, we'd encourage them to contact some of these groups that have offered help. And if you just simply Google the fire, Alameda Fire, sifting debris or something like that, you'll find these groups. They're not hard to find right now.
Several people on our Facebook Live right now are asking if there's any help here at this location for undocumented workers or what FEMA has available for them.
I'm going to ask Mr. Rice to address that question.
Yeah, first of all, we want to make sure that everyone feels welcome to talk to someone from FEMA. FEMA's really here as a humanitarian mission in partnership with the whole community, including voluntary agencies and the Red Cross. So if the FEMA program cannot help you due to your citizenship status, we want to make sure you have access to those programs. And we're trying to ensure that all of this information is given to community leaders to also take to their community members so that they can talk to a trusted member rather than coming to someone in a blue shirt like mine if that's not their preference. As well, FEMA delivers assistance on a household by household basis. So if you have a member of your household who is a citizen or has a green card, if they have a social security number, again, these may be ways for the household to register and receive benefits through that household member. Thanks.
If you have a dreamer in your household, does that count as a qualifying member of the household?
Ma'am, I'm really not sure the answer on that, and we'll make sure that we get that answer to you afterwards.
John, I got a question for you. As far as the county goes, what's the current status of applying fuel breaks along the Bear Creek Greenway this time?
For the section that burned, unfortunately, there's not a lot of fuel breaks there. Well, actually, there's fantastic fuel breaks because the area burned pretty thoroughly. The Bear Creek Greenway right now, its current status is a very tough issue. Right now, we're estimating in the neighborhood of 900 acres of the Greenway burned, a little over 9 miles. We're working with Soil Conservation Service, Oregon DEQ, and trying to get a strategy put together before the winter rains come to where we can get that area at least seeded and get that area stabilized before erosion starts occurring. So that's a major push that we're making right now. That's not going to address the long-term needs to revegetate the area with native species and a whole bunch of other issues that are associated with the fire on the Greenway. Right now, we're just trying to get the area stabilized before the winter rains. As far as future management of the Greenway, this fire unfortunately does provide us a great opportunity of how we can manage that thing in the future, and I can guarantee you those discussions are occurring and will continue to occur at a robust in a robust nature.
I was going to say, just to follow up, as far as the northern half of the Greenway, the part that didn't burn, I was told that the county is continuing conversations, and you just reiterated. Is there a timeline for when there might be an approval for putting in fuel breaks on that area?
So the one thing I would note is there were numerous fire breaks cut into the Greenway in the area that burned. We took equipment in this year, worked with the Sheriff's Department and Oregon Department of Forestry, and cut large swaths of area to create fire breaks. The problem is when a fire is being pushed by wind speeds of 40 miles an hour, you almost can't make those fire breaks big enough. And so that work to try to increase or decrease the fire danger on the Greenway is an ongoing issue. But I think people need to understand a fire of this nature is very, very difficult to stop, regardless of the size of the fire break.
Is it something that the county sees as valuable, though? Because obviously, if you're spending a lot of time talking about it amongst the county, is it something the county hopes to be able to do, is put in these fuel and fire breaks?
Absolutely. We recognize there's a need to do that. We'd also, want to make sure people understand the Greenway is not a county facility. The Greenway is owned by 5 different cities. The county, the Oregon Department of Transportation, there's a consortium of people that manage and own that facility. The county does have a leadership role in it, but we'd have to work with everybody to do that. And there's clearly a recognized need to take steps to try to reduce fire danger on the Greenway.
You kind of mentioned a timeline about how when you want to start cleaning this up, and mid-October was kind of brought up. Is there a timeline that was thought past that, like when you're hoping to have it all done?
At this point, I don't want to venture to give an estimate of that until we get contractors on board, until we really start that process. I don't want to put a time frame out there that is almost guaranteed to be wrong no matter what I say.
John, my understanding understanding is that there's stage one, which would be the hazardous materials removal. Is that the one that would be the 25-75 match with possibly 100%? And who picks up the 25% and who picks up the 75% to 100%?
So there's lots of terms being thrown around on that. We've been calling it phase one, and phase one is the household hazardous waste, and that's when that process I talked about where DEQ has contracted with the EPA strike teams to come in and remove the household hazardous waste. The 25% cost share of that right now is being picked up by the state of Oregon. They have agreed to pay that. And so that should come at no cost to local governments or individuals to have that work completed. The state is covering that cost. The next phase, which is phase two, which is the bigger cleanup, where the ash is removed and all the debris is removed, that is that piece I was talking about. That is, we're negotiating a cost share on that. That is not a final number. And so I don't want to speculate who's going to have to pay, because until that process is finalized, I simply don't know who will and how much it's going to be.
And is the 75% of the match, is that FEMA picking that up? Who picks that up?
That's typically a FEMA reimbursable is up to 75%, yes. And then the locals are responsible for 25%. And how that, again, if that ends up being how it would be done, do the cities pay? Do we try to recover costs from individuals? The problem with this fire is those costs are so high, the cities and the county and individuals simply can't do it. And so that presents a huge problem.
For phase two, do you see that as something that insurance or homeowners would largely need to start planning to cover, or could we get a significant coverage of phase two by like FEMA or someone else?
Well, no, so phase two currently, the household or the debris cleanup for individual property owners is not something that's covered yet. That's the category A, the petition that's being made to the state. And if that does get approved and and the cost share is negotiated, then we'd have, we'll know the answer to that question. But until that time, I don't know the answer to those questions.
I've heard estimates of, Jenny Jordan was telling the county commissioners maybe $5,000 to do that immediate mitigation along the Greenway before the rains hit. Does that sound like an estimate? And how quickly would you try to get that work done?
So add 2 zeros to that number. So the current estimate right now, and we haven't gone out and actually contracted this work, but our estimate right now roughly is approximately $500,000 to do that initial seeding and try to stabilize the Greenway before the winter rains come. Right now we're working with FEMA and others to figure out how to pay for that.
This might be a FEMA question, but with FEMA picking up at least a significant chunk of that phase one household hazardous material removal, the fact that we have undocumented immigrant families, could that hurt the cleanup efforts? But we all want it to be coordinated, but what if this household is undocumented immigrant with no qualifying household member?
Yeah. That's a good question. So with public assistance, the state is the applicant, right? So based on an expedited request from the governor to try to provide mitigation for any toxins, any hazardous waste in the environment that could impact human health, we were able to move forward quickly with what we call Category B, right? So again, as the state, as the applicant, it's not really a matter of eligibility for the folks who reside here and the property owners.
Any other questions?
John, I think I do, but I need to look for a second. The hazardous material debris from phase one, where would all of that go?
So right now, the very first part of that process is the contract or the EPA strike teams that are going to be helping with that work are identifying temporary locations. And that's going to be somewhere near the burn area, not right in the middle of it, but near the burn area, someplace where they can stage this material. They'll take that and stage it there, and then after that, it will be disposed of according to the state and federal laws that dictate how that material has to be disposed. So if it's a hazardous waste, then it can only go to a Class 1 kind of a facility. It'll go to a Class 1. hazardous waste facility. If it can be dumped locally here at Dry Creek landfill, it'll be placed there, but it'll be disposed of according to federal and state laws.
Does Dry Creek for phase 2 have the capacity to handle the volume of debris?
So there's two parts of that question. One is much of the debris that we see out there in this burn area is recyclable materials. There is a whole lot of steel and metal out there. These mobile home parks that burnt, the steel frames are left, the appliances are left. In many of the households, it's primarily appliances, and so much of that material will able to be recycled, and the local recyclers have been very clear that they want the material and are ready to accept it. Regarding the amount of ash and other debris, we have not received any indication from Dry Creek or that disposal is going to be a problem. I will say they are in the process right now of surveying and trying to get some estimates on the volume so they can understand exactly what might be coming their way, but we have not heard anything from them that indicates that that's going to be a problem. Anything else? All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.